this is purely my personal opinion. I think what we're going to see is that a lot of the work that is going to be done of moving us into a digital financial system is maybe not going to be activated by the retailer as much as we thought. So I think what we'll find is we'll see the traditional banks becoming fintechs, and they will simply upgrade their technology. I will say, though, that is not an original line. I either stole that from Marshall or Arena, but I think you'll see banks becoming fintechs, and I think you'll find fintechs also becoming banks.
So the man who needs no introduction, Will Cleaver, Director of Marketing here at Metallicus. Thanks again for taking the time to sit down with me today. Let's jump right into it, shall we?
Yes, sir.
You are fresh back from Permissionless. Can you share with us, with the community, of some key takeaways that you brought home from Permissionless?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's probably a good place to start by talking about how we went to Permissionless first. As you know, the XPR Network governance dashboard is now live. There are proposals on there. You can see them all at gov.xprnetwork.org. And essentially what that is a platform where members of the community are able to go on and see live proposals for the XPR network, where there are grant allocations, there are votes for certain DeFi protocols and other elements of the ecosystem. But the one that we're focusing on right now was for the grants. And what was really cool was to see Blockworks, the parent company of Permissionless, the conference, got in touch with us. They'd seen a lot of the work that we'd been doing at Metallicus, and they'd known of the governance dashboard, and were interested to see whether Blockworks would be able to submit a proposal to the dashboard for the XPR network to attend the conference in Texas just last month. So yeah, Blockworks created an account on chain on the XPR network, got themselves a WebAuth wallet. They pulled together a proposal for what was a sponsorship package to go to the actual event, which included a 10 by 10 turnkey booth solution. It included, I think, 5 tickets, which was awesome as well. So myself, our CFO, Irina, and our VP of product, Karen, headed down to Austin, Texas. And we also invited some community members along, which was fantastic. And yeah, we attended the conference, essentially crowdfunded from a grant that was put through the dashboard. And I think it was just one, incredible to see someone as Blockworks, as big as Blockworks, activate on chain. They're obviously a big media title in the space, so that was fantastic, first of all. And then to see the community get behind it to really crowdfund that marketing. So Permissionless was awesome. It was a very high caliber conference, so some really, really solid attendees across the board, and that was represented in the types of conversations that we were having there. So it was good.
Are there any connections that we don't know about that you're allowed to share with us?
I won't say in like individual companies that we were talking to and their names, but yeah, so there were a number of different companies from many different industries at Permissionless. And I think one standout conversation that we had was a company from a mortgage lending and borrowing business that were looking for real world use cases and a blockchain to select to build their DeFi protocol on to enable mortgages on chain. So we had some really lengthy conversations about, not just XPR network and how that would serve perfectly for the system, because we've already built MetalX lending, etc. But just some really interesting discussions about those real world use cases. And I think, what really was interesting was that blockchain is almost perfect for that model already. So, great takeaways. We've exchanged contacts. We've, the port of call for all of this is to share documentation and sort of assist as much as we can. So Yeah, that was a really interesting use case.
Were there any like key themes of the whole permissionless thing? Like if you could sum it up, were there any like key objectives of like what the whole conference was about?
I think the thing that Permissionless really do well and Blockworks is they've really shaped a very 2023 brand around an industry which has often not been taken as seriously. And I think everything from their brand identity, the way they organize their podcasts, I think the way their website is and how easy it is to use, it normally serves as a very good source of information within the industry. And not only that, but they cover sort of digital assets and then also traditional assets as well. So you've kind of got the beauty of both worlds. So Permissionless generally attracts a very good crowd from what I can see. And this year was obviously our first time attending from the Metallicus team. And yeah, it was fantastic. It was really high quality caliber of attendee. A lot of senior executives from many different companies in many different industries. And what I thought was really interesting was different companies that aren't using blockchain currently had sent some of these senior executives down to Permissionless to research chains, see what other people are working on, and almost to the extent find chains that were suitable to bring to life use cases for their business models. And that was definitely a reoccurring theme. Great example of that would have been we spoke to a gentleman from Chicago who worked for one of the largest mortgage lending companies, and they're looking at tokenized use cases for mortgages on chain. So XPR network obviously serves perfectly for that, but it was very, very exciting to to see these people almost cross the barrier and say, well, blockchain is the future. And the fact that they're exploring now and we're giving away documentation and directing people in the right direction, it was very, very positive.
If you could put a percentage, because that's interesting to me, if you could put a percentage of how many companies were there that aren't in the crypto space, like what was the balance? Was it like 10% less?
It was it was probably 10% less, 10% non-crypto attendee for sure.
Got it.
They had a huge hackathon beforehand, so we met some really, really talented developers. We actually met one of the development houses that has contributed a lot to the Antelope protocol, which was fantastic to see. So got chatting with them. Obviously, we're always interested in speaking to people that develop and speak in the same language as us. So that was very exciting. But in terms of what we took away from the conference, there were many different touch points and many fields that were relative to what we were looking to take away. So everything from looking at potential hackathons for the future for both chains, looking at development houses to help take some of the ideas that we've had at Metallicus and find people to bring those to life. We're obviously heavily focused on the financial services side of things, but I personally have got loads of ideas that I would love to see activated on XPR network. And I posted about one of those the other day and, hashed together a quick white paper and dropped that up. But there's a lot of things that can be done. So it's always great to meet developers and build out that network. And we met some really interesting people from OGs in the space too, which was very interesting. I had a great discussion from someone formerly who used to work for MakerDAO, which was obviously great to see. And collaborative efforts as well from a media point of view. So journalists, some influencers that speak a similar language to Metallicus, like anyone that can sort of help us take that mission of Metallicus and amplify it across is always beneficial. So yeah.
So could I make the argument that it was a good return on investment from a community standpoint? Because the community was who, basically supported the ticket there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, like I think it was fantastic that the proposal passed.
And quickly, right? It was pretty fast.
Yeah. It's really set a benchmark for I think what is possible for community marketing, and we're starting to see more and more proposals come through, which I think is great. And I personally know of Two more that are going to get put through soon, which you should be able to hear about from people that heard about the way that it worked. Another media title in the space who I have a lot of respect for. They're due to put one through, and you can find out about that from probably their social channels as and when it goes live. But I think the model, in a sense, that sort of puts it up to the community that are obviously part of the XBR network is obviously a great part of it. Um, I didn't really answer your question. Return on investment, absolutely. We made a ton of fantastic relationships. We met a lot of people that we haven't met before. We nurtured relationships with people that we're already working with as well, which is obviously very important. And also for me to get an idea of what does brand look like in the space? Like, what are people doing? How are they trying to activate? And it really opened my eyes up to where I think a lot of the creative NFT, brand activation stuff can go. There was a group called Trippy Labs who set up an incredible digital art gallery inside the conference, with a lot of this art curated by Trippy Labs, and they played a DJ set, which was really cool. And I think as and when we do these interesting, immersive experiences, I think people are going to start taking the creative art side of things a little bit more seriously, because I think that wave of NFTs that we had in recent cycles didn't exactly position what NFTs were, to the wider world. So that was really nice to see as well.
I'm going back to the model thing because that was so interesting because in a sense, uh, like in the legal system, everything moves so slowly, right? And now with social media and the fact that something can go viral, it's kind of crazy to think how quickly something can be changed in that kind of model. Somebody, you know, posts a proposal, right? And it can be voted and changed, and something can be changed really quickly. That's actually like if you extract that out into like laws of, and now we're getting into the kind of this whole concept of like network states, like laws can be changed inside communities very quickly. And I don't know if it's cool, but it's also kind of scary, especially considering like deep fake stuff. Cause like, what if the wrong news is sent and then someone says, now we need to change the proposal or change this,
Yeah,
and it can be, so it's fun to watch um, uh, a use case example in the real world.
for sure. I think a lot of stuff with DAOs and communities, and a lot of people that I'm speaking to when I'm networking and passing out ideas. I've got an idea at the minute for a local coffee shop next to me, and the coffee shop has got, I believe, 8 seats. Very small, but there's a hole in the wall. It's fantastic. You can sit outside, but come winter, the demand for those seats inside, with obviously a Toronto winter, is through the roof. And I think what would be a really interesting use case there is for the coffee shop to sell memberships for the winter, where you have a finite supply. So maybe you only have 100 of these memberships. And from that, it's connected to a scheduling or, Calendly-esque app where if you are the owner of that membership card, you can book 2 slots per week on an evening to go and work in there, and have your coffee, have a glass of wine, and do work. So you've kind of got that system where you own something tangible, it's on chain, it has a market value, because instantly those memberships are going to soar, right? Like, theoretically, not financial advice for my friend at the coffee shop, but the whole principle of it is that you get a community that, you can also, have people verify their identity as well, just to make other members within the community feel safe too. But there are all of these like very small grassroots, almost like BaaS, blockchain as a service ideas that we can activate. And I think even that as a system, looking at the bounties that we're going to put out for XPR network developers to work on. These are like some really interesting use cases. But as you said, that whole possibility of being able to vote and make decisions is fantastic. I remembered a part I missed from that I pitched him on the idea was like, imagine if the community also had, say, within their sommeliers, and those sommeliers were the ones that got to decide on which wines he circulated through each month. So it would be a DAO dashboard. It would come out and it would say, these are the 10 wines that we're thinking of stocking for the next month. And then the people that hold memberships to that coffee and wine bar can go in and say, XYZ, these are the ones that we want. And then you can then fire up a community forum. People can talk about the wines, why they didn't like it, what should we order next week, etc. So I think that bridge between a DAO existing only in a purely digital space versus like a hybrid in real life online DAO, that is super interesting. And I think
And
that's, sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, and then in that scenario, like the wine company can come in and put a proposal to the community and saying, "Hey, here's my wine." That's kind of
There
cool.
you go. You can take it even further. You could get, some furniture provider, like maybe West Elm want to come in and they want to hit some marketing campaigns where they could go and say, look, we will give you free furniture if you post about it on your social channels or something like that. Do we want to change the seats? Or even, you can even take it to the extent of, imagine if there was a budget allocation that the owner of the coffee and wine bar could spend on enhancing the space every year. And from your membership, that could be streaming. If you pay a monthly membership, you pay $100 per month, and $10 of that goes into a smart contract, which then goes towards funding things that the members want to do to change the space. So they might say,
Hmm.
the air conditioning's broke, let's upgrade our
Yeah.
air conditioner. Or even better, why don't we pay $2,500 to bring in a really cool comedian next week, right? His fee is this, we can put some money behind. So I think that's what's really cool.
Yeah. And then the community, like you said, maybe the community can throw in more to get bigger names to come to bring even more people, like more talent into the, or a new, that just, near me, I remember there was a coffee shop near me and he had a great patio, but he didn't have any umbrellas. And eventually I stopped going because he just wouldn't invest in umbrellas and the sun was brutal. So maybe
Yeah.
that fund would go towards buying
Yeah.
umbrellas.
I think blockchain can do a lot for members clubs. I'm a member of a members club, and they've got a phenomenal, a big wait list. And I probably don't want to remain a member there much longer. And if I was able to sell that onto a market for that value, that would have been so interesting. And I think we'll hopefully see models where if you are a member of somewhere and you're paying a monthly membership fee, that membership fee is going in and accruing equity into it over time. So like we can instantly reward loyalty for being a member of something from day one, which I think is cool. And especially with, the streaming function on XPR network, that's a fantastic way to do that over days, hours, weeks, however you want.
That streaming thing made me think of a concept of people who like imagine because streaming as a content creator is becoming, a lot more popular in a sense because the streamer is getting paid by the platform. He can set up something where he pays you to watch his live.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool business models that can come with the streaming.
For
Oh,
sure. I think we saw it with the Meta Ray-Ban glasses, how you can just instantly switch from streaming on your phone, to your glasses. And you're going to find people paying for like real-time PPV content. Like you
yes.
will log in, you'll have a digital wallet full of, I don't know, maybe you get $1,000 in credits for a streaming platform and you can go and consume content. And because of the per second functionality, you could be paying while you're live on that stream to the streamer. And if you don't like it, you can cut it dry. Because I think a lot of the time, think of the upcoming fight with like Jake Paul and not Jake Paul, sorry, Logan Paul and Dylan Dennis and Tommy Fury and KSI. Some people might only like half of that card. So rather than have to pay whatever it is, $100, or I'm not entirely sure what the specifics are for that fight, but imagine if you could get a per minute PPV rate where you would be able to go on and look. I think that's super interesting for micropayments.
Yeah, yeah, you can, like, if the person who bought a front row seat, he can give away 10 slots to people who can pay to view
Wow.
from his point of view. And it covers the cost of his ticket in a
Yeah.
sense.
I think the really interesting part is where the creator economy is going to cross over with these sort of online communities and DAOs. So you can almost have these people that are behind and supporting these individuals, whether they be streamers, gamers, whatever. My friend this weekend introduced me to the Beta Squad, which are a group of YouTubers from the UK. And I think what we're finding is that people online are looking for someone to form an allegiance to something to feel a part of, right? It's like the same psychological cycles that we go through as humanity, but now you've got almost these people who are out in the real world living the experiences that maybe you wanted to experience yourself. And I think, you can go down a bit of a rabbit hole of, as we become more digitized, we are actually in theory becoming less connected. As we're becoming more connected, we're less connected because people are going to isolate themselves, and they're just going to be able to pay to, live this life that they think they want for themselves, whether that's then taking it a step further and experiencing it through a Apple VR headset. The next thing you know, Apple VR is going to move from that hybrid experience to full immersive experience. So if you combine what Zuckerberg showed us the other day with the Ray-Ban streaming glasses, it's almost like you can transport your psyche into someone else's.
Yeah. Yeah, because you were able to see Lex and his astonishment as he even mentioned during it, he's like, there was a second where I forgot that we were in two separate spaces,
Yeah,
thousands of miles apart.
yeah.
Um,
I
yeah.
find it I find it when I go to concerts and I'm just so immersed in the experience. It's like taking that moment and giving that to someone else now is very easy. And
Yeah.
that's what's wild.
Did you see the U2 play in the Sphere for the first time in Vegas? Yeah, that's another really cool thing that's going on. Yeah, I can imagine they're they're at the tip of the iceberg of of everything that's going on.
Yeah. They just announced Jake Paul's going to fight Canelo in there. So I'm quite interesting to see. I assume that the floor plan is malleable. Because the way I saw it was that crazy backdrop of like the desert and then the stage at the front. But
Yeah,
I wonder if they're going to be able to put the boxing ring in the
in the
center
middle.
and then seats around with like crazy stuff going on the outside,
Yeah.
on
Or
the
if
inside.
or if they keep the ring there, and instead of the desert, it's they create a fake second half of people viewing from that perspective. That would be interesting.
Or what I thought the other thing they might do is, what if they actually blew the fight up so every spectator could also see, a ringside seat, but be right up in the gods, right? So they could televise the fight on the backdrop.
I see. Hmm.
Kind of
Yeah.
defeats the purpose of paying a mad dollar for a
Kind of,
ringside
but
seat, but
yeah.
it's
But I
possible.
think I think there's this concept of still, even in that environment, of like, which I guess is a good thing for humanity. It's like still there is a difference of I'm there at least. Like
Yeah.
I paid to get access to this experience because it's one of a
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
At least while it's
Well,
new.
yeah. A lot of that is essentially social clout, right? So going back to what we were talking about, the creator economy and community and streaming payments, you could theoretically pay to go to the Met Gala in the future, right? Like whoever it might be, Zenada or someone might collaborate with Ray-Bans and Meta, and you can PPV to go and see what it's like to go to the Met Gala as Zenada. Like the possibilities are absolutely wild. And I think
Yep.
something like that operationally has to operate on blockchain. There can be no lag. There has to be low latency. Like if people are dropping in and out and paying for that by the minute, then the payment infrastructure underneath has to work seamlessly. So,
And
you
the
know,
on-chain identity.
and the on-chain identity too, for sure. That's it. That's a big part of it. And I think at the end of the day, if humans are interacting in a digital sphere, in my personal opinion, I think it's as important to protect someone in a digital community as it is to protect someone in the street. So, you could then start going down some crazy rabbit holes of digital police, or I don't know, I've never heard that said before, but I think it's as important to protect people in an online environment as it is to protect them in the real world.
Absolutely, which is why I think we have to, all social, I think, has to move to the blockchain with how fast really good deepfakes are becoming. Like,
Yeah,
there has to be a way to verify and get rid of people who are creating fake ads. There has to be a way for,
yeah,
yeah, or else, yeah, it'll be a lot more chaos.
yeah. I mean, verified identity is a great place to start with that. And I think, you know, obviously, as Metallicus and using some of the applications, verified identity is a prerequisite for engaging. And I think that comes to also protect other users. So, at least when you're using a DeFi protocol, that the people that have contributed the liquidity that, you know, you're trading with it have been verified. And people have the argument against it, but I know personally, as someone that has operated in probably more of a Web2 environment for the majority of my life, and obviously understanding Web3 now, that makes me feel more comfortable. And I think I am on the side of, an early adopter within blockchain. And I think as you look to move into that sort of as that curve increases, as mass adoption gradually comes in, it's not going to be as fearful to KYC someone. And actually, if we can work to the point where people understand data protection laws stronger, and they know that on identity protocols, that shards of their ID are stored in different places, and actually we can prove that a decentralized identity is better than a centralized identity at multiple locations, such as multiple banks, government organizations. And once you've gone through that process once and you've got that verified check mark, that certain, requests from different businesses operating on chain can go, yeah, that person's verified. We can issue this proof of ownership of car. Or, yes, I'm willing to do an OTC trade with this person because they are verified by XYZ as a financial services provider.
Do we have time to switch gears a little bit into imagine someone left during the bear market, right? And they're coming back and starting to dip their toes kind of back into the crypto space. Can you run me through what they could expect is new under the Metallicus brand?
Yeah, for sure. Metallicus is a blockchain fintech out of San Francisco, California. Was founded in 2015, incorporated in 2016. And in 2017, we launched our first product, which was MetalPay. So MetalPay is a peer-to-peer cash and crypto app. It's available in 48 states in the US. And it essentially allows users that are looking to enter the world of cryptocurrency to purchase digital assets seamlessly, safely, and with the familiarity of their existing, money providers. So you'll find a UI is very simple to your banking provider, but actually a lot better. And you've got the luxury and beauty of being able to hold cash assets, but then also digital assets too. In addition to that, we've now got MetalX, which is the full suite decentralized trading platform. We kind of consider this more of an advanced or pro product. So once you've finished practicing custody of digital assets within your MetalPay account, we'll then say, like, hey, do you want to move into our pro experience where you need to have your own wallet with your own private key, and you are now responsible for custody of your own digital assets. But what that does is it opens you up to a whole new world of possibilities. So MetalX, you've got lending, borrowing, yield farms, over the counter trades as well. You've got payment streaming, as we were talking about previously, and everything in there operates in a decentralized manner on the XPR network. So as I mentioned before, you've got to have verified identity to be able to use it. But the beauty is that the XPR network allows trades to execute instantly. So XPR network can support around 4,500 transactions per second. All of our accounts on the XPR network have human readable names as well. So you don't have to worry about sending to, long 26 or 27 character addresses. It's very seamless, and it familiarizes, some of those touch points that you might have of using your banking app and sending to an email address. We have Interac in Canada, which, while is quite a slowish TradFi system, it actually works pretty well. But it's making all of those processes very easy to understand and to execute sending cash, which is a big part of the ecosystem. There's WebAuth Wallet, and WebAuth Wallet is a self-custody wallet, which is backed with web authentication. So behind every transaction or connecting to any decentralized application, you verify that connection with the biometrics that you set up when you create an account. So you can go to webauth.com, create an account on there. It will prompt you to add a key, which allows you to authenticate connection to dApps, as I mentioned, but then also to authenticate trades as well. So, and then if you take that digital wallet that you've created at webauth.com, you can also take your seed phrase and input that into your device so that a private key is stored within the secure enclave of your iPhone. So essentially acting as cold storage. In addition to that, we've obviously got Metal Blockchain, and Metal Blockchain is our layer 0 blockchain, which was kind of the product of Money 2020 in a sense, where, we were speaking to a lot of financial services companies that wanted to be able to offer digital assets to their consumers. And we built it. We went to Money 2020 and everyone absolutely loved it. But then what happened was these financial services companies also started thinking about their own chains. And what Metal Blockchain allows these financial services companies to do is to build their own private networks, but those that benefit from, the tried and tested features of things like the XPR network, instant payments, digital verified identity, but then also all of the benefits of having, EVM compatibility as well. So this kind of full suite blockchain system that connects with MetalPay, with MetalX, with XPR network and WebAuth, and you've got this 5-pointed star that would allow someone to come in and basically have all the tools of what they want to achieve. We're not saying everything that we've built in this one space is going to work for everyone, but there are certain elements of this system that will allow people to achieve, this move into a blockchain world. And, a prime example would be, as we were talking about this members idea for the coffee club earlier, XPR network serves perfectly for that. We've got working open source NFT markets that can be reskinned, and we've seen some fantastic efforts within the community. We've got verified identity protocol on chain as well, so we can back up that safety piece. So.
How difficult then is it to take multiple products for different audiences? Like you mentioned, pro traders and retail traders and people who just want to interact. How difficult is it to take those and kind of fit it all under one brand?
It's hard. I think what Metallicus has done very, very well, because it is difficult to, tell all of these different stories for different products and different touch points, is we try to push everything down the path at the same time. But sometimes certain elements of our industry progress very fast that we need to keep up with the pace of how it's moving. So I'll give you a good example. We are obviously fully focused on financial services, but we recognize that NFTs were a big part of our industry, and we want to be a part of that as well. And I think testament to the incredible developers at Metallicus to be able to develop that NFT marketplace and open source it for people to be able to build. And it's in the ether. People are already building and using it, and it's a pillar of that chair. But I think as we've seen slowly with the transition of the DEX being branded as Metal X, and we've got some incredible plans in the works to really uplift that UI and bring it up to a standard of Metal Pay 3. So you've got this crypto curious sort of I'll dip my toes in experience with Metal Pay. And then as and when we build that familiarity with executing trades or holding tokens, we can start to enter them into this education funnel, which says, hey, we notice you're holding some USDC, for example. Did you know that if you take custody of your USDC into a self-custody wallet, you would be able to benefit from a variable APY in a DeFi environment where everything is over collateralized by the borrowers, but also with verified identity? And I think it's just those sort of nudges of how do you get people to understand the broader ecosystem? I think when it comes down to more of the blockchain side of things, I see XPR Network very community led, as you've said, where we will see these brands activate. And what we might have is one small coffee shop and wine shop now with their members group. But what's to say another coffee shop, 500 meters down the road on a street just around the corner from me, they don't join this same program. And now what I can do is I've got this app where I can choose seats are full at, the coffee shop's called Woolshed. Maybe I'll be able to get one at 135 on Ossington Street. So you begin to sort of see how multiple projects being on the same chain are going to benefit from, that same ecosystem together. So I see XPR Network leveraging a lot of retail brands, a lot of, activations with things like community-led coffee shop apps. And then from a B2B perspective, looking at financial services, seeing the people that are wanting those great community pieces, but in their own closed wall, so their own private chains where, it might not be ideal for them to build on XPR Network, so they build on Metal instead.
That was the kind of the last topic I wanted to get into a little bit, was like kind of like banking. Like, I think there's gonna be a fair statement made that there's lost trust in banking, and so how do you again balance the whole idea of there's mistrust, the awareness that banking is an important critical infrastructure, and the future of making banking, like giving it like a technology makeover? Like I guess the question in that is like, how do you include banking when kind of the whole crypto sentiment has been like anti-banking and there's no trust in it?
This is purely my personal opinion. I think what we're going to see is that a lot of the work that is going to be done of moving us into a digital financial system is maybe not going to be activated by the retailer as much as we thought. So I think what we'll find is we'll see the traditional banks becoming fintechs, and they will simply upgrade their technology. And I think what we are doing is we are creating and establishing what blockchain can do from all of the work that these incredible companies are doing in the industry, and showing how fast you can send money, and showing that I can send to an address which has a verified identity. Because right now, if I send my fiance cash in my HSBC account, theoretically, it's not guaranteed that that's going to her. I'm giving that money to HSBC to say, I'm going to trust that you give this to my fiance. And I think as we start creating use cases, showing that the technology fundamentally works and is secure, in addition to, let's face it, the amount of savings that institutions can make by leveraging this type of technology, but then also minimizing losses from fraud as well, I think that's when we're going to see banks adopting blockchain. And actually, you'll look at your interface of your banking app and it will be exactly the same. The only difference is rather than get projected a number on a UI, which is a trusted amount that you're saying, you can almost look at those pixels attributed to a value on chain. So if it says I have $4,000 in my checking account, I have $4,000. It's not my bank is telling me that I have $4,000, right? And I think that's what's really cool. And that's where, if you run it back and combine it to that streaming and that payments thing that we were talking about, you could look real time at the money that's in your bank without having to worry about, was this credit card charge processed? Something I found funny when I was in the States last week, I was like, restaurants honestly taking our credit cards, running through the transaction for the amount of the total bill, and then running the gratuity on additionally on top, because they're making double the fees on that. And that is just absolutely insane, in my opinion. So as soon as we start digitizing our money and our bank accounts, and we're logging into our Netflix with a wallet, or we're logging into PPV boxing matches that are streamed in the Sphere, we can really almost take control of our finances a bit better. Because a feature that I love, which is so prehistoric, is I get SMSs whenever I use my card on my phone, right? Ancient, but it helps me keep track. I know what's coming out. Imagine when that's push notification based and it's real-time data. So you might find that you log into a retail site. I go to Nike to go and buy some new trainers. I connect my wallet and I actually see a real-time balance, and I go, I probably can't afford those trainers right now. But if I go, maybe I spent $2,000 the day before and my balance hasn't updated, I might go ahead and make that purchase and find that I haven't controlled my finances as much. So I think there's also an incredible level of responsibility for financial services companies and banks and institutions to use blockchain, because I think it's going to help people control their money better too.
Absolutely.
Self-custody puts the onus of managing your money more on the individual.
And real quick though, the way you just jumped into my head when you said that, because you said you can make a better, you're buying the trainers and you notice you don't have that amount, but there's also the cool concept of lending can almost, on DeFi platforms, can almost turn into like a credit card. Because like if you have enough as collateral, you can, I don't know. Yeah, just the whole concept. The thing that jumped in my mind was credit cards and lending on DeFi and borrowing.
It's wild, and it's good. And I think what we'll find is that maybe banks will have their own DeFi lending platforms, and you will go and use those, and they will just happen to take a small, maybe not a smaller percentage, but a fee where it allows them to still be the lender and still be the borrower, but it exists in a protocol that is based more on computer science and less on an individual having to manage that balance sheet. And I think that's what is very interesting.
And more transparent.
And more transparent, for sure. But it kind of all comes back to, we talk about these PPV ideas and streaming payments and creator economy, but we've got to do the financial system first, because I don't think this stuff can operate until we digitize our finances, and then you build the layers on top, right? You need to be able to have your WebAuth wallet log into the PPV site to then be able to execute that streaming contract. And I think that starts by bringing financial institutions on board, going to conferences like Money 2020, speaking to these financial services companies and really explaining to them. Because the power of going to a conference really is you've only got to speak to the senior leaders who we are seeing come through to these conferences now and explain it in the most simplest form possible. And I think, I'm a huge fan of Naval Ravikant, and the one thing that he says is that truly understanding something is being able to explain it to a child. And I think that is in our responsibilities as key opinion leaders and employees within the space to keep pushing forwards. And I think there's also a level of responsibility of good journalism too. And that's another thing to hook back to Blockworks is Blockworks really try to hero the space. And I think they really try to push it forwards. And I watched the BBC Panorama documentary the other night about the FTX trial. And a takeaway that I took from that was like, it's all great and well reporting on something that happened, I think, almost a year ago. But the entire sentiment of that documentary was doom and gloom. And once again, it paints an industry in a very terrible light. And there aren't as many people talking about how this can empower and improve the world. And I think we need more of that content. I think we need also more responsibility from the people working in the industry to maybe quash things that don't look good and things that we don't think hero us in the right light. And it's going to hurt some people because I think a lot of people have built identities around this space and around the wrong things and monetary gain. And actually, we're talking about blockchain here. And this is why, when we talk about Metallicus being a blockchain fintech out of San Francisco, is like, we want to feel that golden year of development and improving finance. And I think you've just got to keep pushing and talk to family, friends, anyone and just at least give them the simplest insight into what blockchain can do. Because I think fundamentally, you can't argue with facts and transparency.
The two things that I want to highlight that you said that were interesting was banks turning into fintechs. I think that's awesome. And then, yeah, I agree that there's almost like half of the whole crypto space is almost built on this like anonymous clout farming. And I think if we see less of that, and like you mentioned, more of the educational and positive use cases, I think that's our way out, is to somehow, change that balance.
I will say, though, that is not an original line. I either stole that from Marshall or Arena, but I think you'll see banks becoming fintechs, and I think you'll find fintechs also becoming banks as well. So
nice. Maybe put that on a shirt, like, or something like that.
Find out who said it, and then we'll quote it up. But yeah, I mean, lots of incredible stuff going on at Metallicus. We've got a whole boatload of updates to come out. We've obviously got some really good looking new websites. They're going to continue to develop. We're going to be adding a ton of sub pages that talk about governance, DeFi, demos for people to be able to build things like this membership protocol. We've got more bounties coming out as well to build more integrations from WebAuth, which is super exciting. As I mentioned, I know some really cool brands that are about to put some governance proposals through as well. So keep your eyes out for those. And yeah, just keep supporting. We've got some incredible press dropping very soon as well. So, lots of a lot of interesting thoughts from Marshall on where the industry's headed. And we're also going to Money 2020 in 3 weeks, which we're very, very excited about. Marshall, Irina, Don, Frank, and myself are going to be there. We're going to be talking about everything in banking and blockchain. I'm going to be there to talk about creative blockchain solutions and take some of the ideas that I have and see how brands want to activate it, and also see where their roadblocks are in terms of implementing blockchain. So we'll be in Las Vegas from the 22nd to the 25th. find us on X, find us on Telegram, drop us a DM. We're happy to meet up with anyone there. And yeah, we've got a exciting end of the quarter to chase down, and looking forward to see how we end up for this year. But I think it's been a hugely successful year. We've continued to ship products and stand by our promise of delivering on what we're going to build. And I know for sure that there's a lot more exciting stuff coming out as well. So stay tuned. Hopefully we're going to do more of these videos. And
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you for your time. One last question. I notice somewhere in the back, I think I see, is that an astronaut on your couch?
It is. So I'll grab it. I got this from, actually, it's a plant pot. So, but I
Okay.
bought this when I joined. Obviously, in the early days of crypto, it was quite synonymous, but it's beautiful. And inside, it's got a ton of what I'm saying are Horcruxes, but every conference I've been to, wristband, there's some business cards in there as well. But I don't know, it's just like a lucky charm, and it sits behind me, sits on my desk.
Awesome. Well, it caught my eye. And so the Money 2020 conference pass will go in there.
They're all in there. Two Money 2020 conferences, Permissionless, Consensus, Bitcoin, Polaroids, Lucky Coins, everything.
What happens when it gets full? You have to get another
It's
one?
it's getting pretty close now. We'll
All
see.
right. Well, thanks again. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Andrew.